What's going on, guys? It's Fantasy Stock Exchange here, bringing you another installment of the Dynasty Decision Series we do over here at the Fantasy Stock Exchange YouTube channel. Today, we got a bunch more teams for you guys, and there are about, 10 to 12 of you guys that actually sent your teams, asked for advice, specific questions you guys are really looking for in attacking both your rookie drafts and overall improving your Dynasty rosters, which is what this series is intended to do. That being said, Corey, how you doing today? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to giving a lot of rookie advice. Obviously, with the NFL draft being last week, it's the weekend now. A lot of people are probably having their rookie drafts, which is why we decided to do a Dynasty Decisions at this point. We figured a lot of you guys are going to be like having questions like, hey, I have the 110 and the 108. This is my team. What should I do? Type of questions. So we really wanted to run through some of those and give you guys some advice. And those of you that are listening to this that don't have your teams featured, you can definitely join the Discord. DM us on there. Ask us any questions anytime. We don't charge for it or anything. It's totally free for you to do. And you can get featured on an upcoming episode of Dynasty Decisions or Q&A Dynasty, whatever you want to call it. We call it Dynasty Decisions. So, yeah, I'm doing good and ready to get into this.
Yep, 100%. But before we get into the first team, as always, we're going to hit the intro on y'all. Okay, to start off, we actually have listed here smoothslyr's team. You guys can see the team on the screen probably for the next minute or so. But at quarterback, he's currently got an absolute stock up in terms of Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, and Davis Mills. Running back, you got CEH, Melvin Gordon, Nyheim Hines, Darrell Henderson, Josh Kelly, and Darrington Evans. At wide receiver, wow, I really like this as well. He's got Terry McLaurin, DJ Chark, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Russell Gage, Terrace Marshall, De'Ami Brown, and Josh Palmer. And at tight end, he's got Jared Cook, Anthony Ferguson, and Cole Kmet. So basically, he has a few questions here. He anticipates his team is going to be able to contend year one. So he's basically asking for his first question. Is it best to wait until the season starts to try and evaluate positions groups, wide receivers, running backs, or etc., on your team during year one? Or should you try and trade for a stud that's locked in top 10 at their position? So let me just read through this question here and try to understand the perspective here.
I think I kind of understand what he's asking. So okay. I think what he's referring to is when it comes to specifically probably guys like Melvin Gordon, DJ Chark, T. Higgins, even Clyde Edwards-Helaire to a degree, we don't know what their buzz is going to be, right? We assume that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the full-time starter, but we don't know for sure if they're going to bring in somebody. With Melvin Gordon, we don't know what the split's going to look like with Javonte Williams. So he's basically asking, should I just kind of wait and see with some of those guys that could go kind of either way between RB1 to RB2 range or RB3 to RB2 range or wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2 range? Is it best to wait and see? Or is it best to say, hey, screw it, I'm not going to risk it. Let me take DJ Chark and Melvin Gordon and package them together and try and get an Amari Cooper, someone like that I know is going to be a stud at the position, so I don't have to worry about something like that. And I would say, one, it depends on how shallow your league is, because studs are always better in a shallow league, especially when you consider you don't have maybe a lot of bench spots or it's a 10-team or an 8-team dynasty league. So if it's a shallow league, I would say, yes, you definitely want to target studs. Depth is less important in those kind of leagues. Usually the team with the best studs will win the championship in that kind of format.
Yep. No, I agree. And in your current perspective, again, with that loaded receiver depth, I wouldn't even be opposed to if you wanted to package one of those younger, talented upside receivers with a pick and maybe get an established option. Like if you can do, let's say, hypothetically, a T. Higgins.
DJ Chark and Terrace Marshall for like Chris Godwin or something like that.
Yeah. I was even going to say if you wanted to even step it up with T. Higgins and a pick for like Calvin Ridley, that would be something that would make sense as well. Overall, you got options, especially with the depth that you've assembled. You got a really good, strong overall team. You have options to really be flexible with this roster. Second question, so we can cut to it. When does it make sense to trade picks for players if you anticipate being competitive? If you can anticipate as early as possible that, okay, this year I'm going to be competitive, this is my plan, I would do it immediately. Because as soon as you get into the season, those picks are going to more so get devalued, and the veteran players are more so going to get valued because people are going to realize, hey, these are the veteran players that are going to end up winning me games. They're going to be priced higher. Whereas in the offseason, the season's so far ahead that people are going to be looking at the picks and going to be speculating about the next year's draft class, that you can really get more value for your picks now if you were to deal them as opposed to during the season. So my goal is, if I know I'm contending, I'm trading those future picks immediately as soon as possible, because I know if I go into the season and I lose a quarterback or I lose a receiver, let's just say hypothetically, that pick's going to be devalued because the person that is trading that veteran is going to know, okay, he's in a desperate spot. I can try to get and accumulate more value in this deal. So being proactive and doing it as early as possible is my best advice in the situation.
Yeah, especially I think you hit the nail on the head with what is valuable at what time of the year, because during the season, we kind of forget about drafts, right? We forget about rebuilding. We forget about draft picks and stuff. Nothing has any value except for the guys that are putting up fantasy points on Sundays. So the hardest time to trade for a player is during the season. The easiest time to trade for a player is before the season starts. So if you go into your season and know that your team is going to be really competitive in like August or something like that, I would advise trading for a player then, but it also could be risky at that point too. So I would say in your situation specifically, you're looking a little thin at running back. So if you realize that your team is starting to compete and you're winning a lot of games, let's say you're like 5-1 or 4-2 or something like that, and you're like, hey, I need another running back, I need an RB2 or something like that to push me over the top, I would anticipate that you should probably try and sell, let's say, your first round pick for a running back option if you want to be doing something like that.
Yep, no, I fully agree. So we can go on to the third question here. He says, what are your buy low running backs or running backs with upside that you'd suggest to look at to shore up the roster? And a lot of them are mostly just veteran guys, to be quite honest. Guys that, maybe have some PPR type of appeal, especially in your full PPR league. If you can get maybe even a James White for super cheap.
Damian Harris and Ronald Jones are two guys that they're young, but their utility in terms of how useful they're going to be is starting to run out. So those two guys make some sense. They're kind of, I guess they're buy low type of running backs because there's some uncertainty in their backfields. I think those are guys that you might be able to acquire for a rookie second round pick right now, especially with rookie fever going so rampant right now. You might be able to acquire a guy like that.
Yeah, and I was mentioning James White. You could probably get him as a rental 1-year option for a rookie third. And this is a guy who, when he's on the field, he's most likely going to figure in that top 30 to 35 minimum PPR range. If you can get him for a rookie third with a contending team, I think that'd be a good move, especially with the move of drafting Mac Jones, really eliminating the overall rushing upside of that offense because you're taking out Cam Newton. By inserting Mac Jones, we could see James White being that ultimate outlet out of the backfield that we saw multiple years with him and Tom Brady. If you can get him for a rookie third, which you should anticipate being low considering you're a contender, the owner might bet on that. And I really like the James White type of potential, especially on that win now type of mold.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And his last question he has here is, how much additional value does having a quarterback plus wide receiver, running back, or tight end, so a stack basically, add to a team versus having guys from different franchises? I would say, it's a ceiling play, and it's also a predictability, like long-term play, right? Because when you're getting a stack, if you're targeting a stack specifically for a ceiling, you want a stack that's going to stay valuable. And what I mean by this is Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes is a stack that's going to stay valuable. But if you were to stack someone like Dak Prescott and Michael Gallup, might not necessarily stay valuable because Michael Gallup is a free agent after this year. And the owner of Michael Gallup, let's say you're trying to trade for him for that purpose, might realize, hey, this guy wants Michael Gallup because he has Dak Prescott and he's looking for a stack. So you might have to pay more as a result of that. So I would say quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end stacks, they're helpful, but it's not something I'm actively looking to do, but it's just kind of an added bonus sometimes. Like, for example, I just traded up in our Scott's Tots Dynasty League. I traded a future first round pick, which is probably going to be at the end of the first round, for Elijah Moore at the 207. And I also have Zach Wilson, who I took earlier in the draft. It's not because I have Zach Wilson that I traded up for Elijah Moore, but it is an added bonus knowing that I do have those guys in a stack now going forward.
Now you're making me want to mention the stack I acquired as well. So with Dak Prescott on the roster, I swung a big deal for CeeDee Lamb, the Lambster himself, and
he stole CeeDee Lamb from the guy that had him too. Let's just be clear about that. So I hope that answered your questions, smoothslyr. I'm kind of surprised you knew how to actually pronounce that. Now we're going to move on to NZ97's team. Current scoring formats: 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 3 flex. So a pretty deep league. And then he also has a kicker and a defense, but we're not really going to talk about those positions. His team you should see on the screen right now for the next little bit. He has Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Joe Burrow as his top 3 quarterbacks in the 2 QB league, which is just absolutely phenomenal there. Also has Jameis Winston and Cam Newton. Again, just great depth. Running back wise, this is just stupid to me. He has Antonio Gibson, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, Damian Harris, Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds, and Le'Veon Bell. I have never seen running back depth like that in Dynasty League. And then at wide receiver, this is where he's a bit thinner. Obviously, he has Cooper Kupp, Chase Claypool, Jarvis Landry, Michael Gallup, Darius Slayton, Henry Ruggs, and Christian Kirk. And then tight end, Waller, Goddard, Hayden Hurst, Cole Kmet, Rob Gronkowski, and Thaddeus Moss. So overall, he has a very, very good team, as you can probably tell. But he does have a few questions for starters. He has the picks you can see on the screen right now. Picks 104, 109, 204, 209, 302, 307, 309, and 409. So he has a lot of picks to go along with his stacked roster. And he's kind of wondering the direction of those picks, which way he should go. And I think we're both in pretty solid agreement that he should be targeting Jamar Chase with that 104 if he's able to do it. And honestly, I wouldn't even be opposed to trying to trade up and make sure that you get Jamar Chase, given your current wide receiver core. So if you anticipate that Jamar Chase is going to go before the 104, and again, this is a 2 QB league, so he should be there at 104, given the fact that you got the running back, Najee Harris, and all the quarterbacks that'll probably go before that point too. 104 is earmarked for Jamar Chase, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we typically say, just take your rookie draft for value. Don't worry about overall positions. But Jamar Chase, although he's tier 2 for me, he is so fringe on that tier 1 simply because he, in my opinion, in your opinion, based off that landing spot, based off that projectable volume, is going to be by far the wide receiver 1 in this class. So in your position, because you have that stacked RB core, because you have those stacked quarterbacks, I wouldn't mind taking Chase at 104, even though he's my 5th ranked player. And you basically mentioned it. At 104, you do Jamar Chase. You got the 109, the 204, the 209, the 302.
109, I'd probably go wide receiver as well. Given the value that's probably going to be there, you're probably looking at Devontae Smith there, potentially even Rashad Bateman if you're willing to pick him there. If Javonte Williams is there, I don't hate just picking the running back and moving on there as well. Or if any of the QBs fall, then you could always go in that direction as well.
And if Kyle Pitts somehow falls to 109 to you like he did to me, then you got to take him as well.
Yeah, but for me, my targets would be Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith with your first 2 picks. Yeah. And then honestly, with the rest of the picks in your draft, your team is so loaded, just go best player available. Whoever you think is the best player available on the board, whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, doesn't matter because your team is so loaded. Real quick, you got another question here that you said, Jameis, someone I guess is offering you Jameis and Josh Jacobs, who are currently on your team, and they want to give you the 105, 205, and a second
smash.
Second next year. And I think, yeah, that's definitely a smash. Given that Jameis Winston is your quarterback 5 right now, or quarterback 4, depending on how you want to look at it, he's really not a guy that you're going to be using all that much, especially when you have Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Joe Burrow as your top 3 options, which are all top 10 dynasty quarterbacks in our opinion.
I want to say quickly too, if you get Jamar Chase, you got that stack.
Yeah, and you also have the stack if you get Jamar Chase. So, and with Josh Jacobs, you have, if you were to get rid of Josh Jacobs, you still have Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, Raheem Mostert, Damian Harris, like Chase Edmonds and Le'Veon Bell. Like you still have adequate RB depth. And if you do trade Josh Jacobs, you're getting the 105 in return. And that 105 could definitely be earmarked for Travis Etienne or Najee Harris if he falls. Or you could go with your 109 and pick Javonte Williams in that situation too. So you have a lot of flexibility if you do that trade. And me and Danny both agree that you should do that trade because you definitely have the adequate depth. And plus Josh Jacobs is a guy that is kind of on thin ice with his current situation right now. A lot of question marks. And you also have Miles Sanders, who's kind of in a similar situation. So if you're able to offload one of those guys and potentially get Travis Etienne or Javonte Williams as a result of offloading one of those guys, I would definitely go in that direction.
Yeah, like if you somehow got Najee, he's basically worth that whole package on his own and more. And so
is Etienne, in my opinion. I have Etienne straight up ranked ahead of Josh Jacobs in Dynasty right now. So if you get Travis Etienne with that 105 overall pick, you're basically just swapping Etienne for Jacobs, which I would gladly do.
Yep, for sure. And we can move on to Dunny. He doesn't actually have this team in here, but he's got a few questions that he thought could be really helpful to you guys, especially the newcomers in Dynasty. So first of all, his first question is, would you prefer the 101 in your rookie draft or Joe Burrow? And for me personally, based off my rankings, I actually would take the 101. I have Trey Lance slightly above Joe Burrow. And that's simply because you get the rushing element of Trey Lance. You get the non-injured knee aspect of him, and you get Kyle Shanahan. I really think that Trey Lance, even during this year, definitely going into next year, is going to be on that fringe top 5 quarterbacks in Dynasty. And because Joe Burrow doesn't really have that rushing game similar to Trey Lance, I can't really envision him having the ceiling that Trey Lance has in his situation. So I would personally take Trey Lance over Joe Burrow.
Okay, now let's say someone completely disagrees with us, right? They're like, you guys are crazy. There's no way Trey Lance is the 101. Would you take Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow straight up?
I have Lawrence one spot higher.
I would take Joe Burrow personally over Trevor Lawrence. I would take him. I would take Joe Burrow. And I think if you're maybe a less risk tolerant person, like you don't want to take a huge risk, I would just take the Joe Burrow side any day of the week. But Trey Lance has got the ceiling that could pay off. So if you're going to be willing to take Trey Lance at the 101 over Joe Burrow, I would take that risk, but it is a risk to do that because Joe Burrow, we've already seen in the NFL. And I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback for the rest of his career, at least in Cincinnati.
Definitely fair. So we can get on to the next question. Which side would you want to be added to your current team? Tannehill and AJ Brown or Dak and CD? And if it's a super flex, I'm taking Dak and CD and not thinking twice about it.
Yeah, so of the guys in this package or this question, AJ Brown is the guy I have ranked highest, but I do see a pretty big difference Yeah, I do see a pretty big difference. Oh, you mean overall rankings? No, I mean,
okay.
Within their position group, I have AJ Brown ranked the highest because he's my wide receiver 2, whereas Dak is like my quarterback 4. But I would take Dak and CD because there's a big difference to me between Dak and Ryan Tannehill, as much as I like Ryan Tannehill. And CD Lamb versus AJ Brown is still pretty close in my opinion, even though I do have AJ Brown higher.
Yeah, the way I look at it is Dak is currently at that late first of a startup pick. So you get Dak late first and CD who's going around that 3-4 type turn versus AJ Brown who's a second rounder and Ryan Tannehill who's about a 5th rounder. So in terms of pure value, you're getting more value with the Dak and CD side, and I would lean that way simply because, not to mention, you also get a little stack there. Got to mention that as well. And I just
think a stack in both cases, but
yeah, to be fair, yeah, but I don't know. I still prefer the Dak and CD side. That's actually a good point that you guys stack both places. But yeah. Dak's currently my quarterback 2, and CD is my current wide receiver 11. Tannehill's my quarterback 9 or 10, actually 10 or 11, and AJ Brown's my current wide receiver 3. So it's close, but I would go Dak and CD. With that being said, let's go into the next question. We don't want to ring on for too long. Kareem Hunt or ETN? This is ETN pretty significantly for me. How about yourself?
I don't think there's a lot of analysis needed. Yeah. Whether you think Kareem Hunt or whether you think Travis Etienne is going to take over the role this year, they have the same roles, at least for this season, right? We know that Travis Etienne is going to be the third down type running back for the Jags, and Kareem Hunt's going to be the third down type running back for the Cleveland Browns. Only difference is that Travis Etienne in his rookie season can definitely beat out the current starter or the current early down back. Whereas Kareem Hunt, I don't think there's any world he beats out Nick Chubb for early down work. The only way Kareem Hunt gets a full workload is if Nick Chubb gets hurt, and Travis Etienne, as early as his midway through his rookie year or into his second year, is going to be the full-fledged feature back there, in my opinion.
Yep. The way I'm looking at it from this perspective is Etienne's got the ceiling that Hunt doesn't, specifically because he can become that workhorse that Hunt never will be. You're getting, a 4-year discount in terms of age? I mean, Etienne's 21, Hunt is, 25? And then you're also getting the fact that Etienne is on a rookie contract versus Hunt being on a 3-year extension deal. If that makes any sense, basically what that means is that he's kind of locked into his role, Hunt. He's never really going to be more than just Nick Chubb's spell, versus Etienne has room in his rookie contract with that 25th overall pick to keep developing into that full-fledged workhorse. So I would absolutely smash Etienne. I think I have him at 17 and Hunt's my RB 25 in Dynasty. I don't have my rankings right in front of me right now. I'm just kind of going off the cuff, but and let's get into the next question. My favorite spot to draft from the 1 to the 12 in a startup. And I know my answer, guys. If you guys have watched the channel for so long, you know I preach just trading down. And the most value you're going to get is trading down from the 1 overall spot. Because people are going to want to lock up Mahomes. And in general, even if you want to stick and pick, you have fucking Patrick Mahomes on your team. So I think the clear answer is the 101. Now, if you're mixing into the fact that your rookie draft, you get the inverse order of your startup, then it's kind of a conversation because you can kind of look at it from that direction. Would you rather the 101 in a startup in the 112 rookie or the 112 in a startup in the 101 rookie? That's when it's kind of a debate. Regardless, I still would lean 101 in both instances.
Yeah, to me, I kind of like being in the middle somewhere. I don't really have a preference. I kind of like being around the 104 to 106 range, or the 109 to like 111 range, because I do kind of like being somewhat close to a turn, but not directly at a turn, if that makes any sense. Because yeah, the first round is the most important because you're getting whatever your, franchise or foundational player is. But going forward for the rest of the draft, if you're picking at 101, then you got to be reaching for players on the turn. And same goes for the 112. You got to be reaching for players on the turn the other way. So I kind of like being in the middle of rounds so I can be in the middle of runs when they happen, or start runs, or, kind of fade positions and stuff and see what happens on the way back. So I do like being in the middle because I trust my ability to draft, and I trust my ability to kind of predict where people are going to go with their next kind of outlook of picks. And I can kind of be ahead of the curve that way. So the 106 is where I'm picking in our dynasty, our listener dynasty startup. And I do enjoy that pick quite a bit.
Yep, for sure. And I don't think I've actually kept one of my actual picks throughout the whole draft because I'm constantly trading. But that being said, we can hop on to the next team, and that's going to be Jared. So he basically just he sent a screenshot of his team, and he says, so far in my amateur dynasty league with Spicy Hot, Murdog, and other members from the Discord, I've been thinking about trading my first rounder next year. And he basically asked, for his first rounder with what he anticipates to be a contender, what's that kind of worth in terms of this year's talent? And he says, I'm sure you guys have answered questions like this before. And since it's my actual dynasty league, I kind of want to see and elaborate as to what my first round pick next year will kind of be in relation to the startup values. A lot of jumbled words by myself. But with that being said, if you kind of look at the board here, I would view the first round pick next year as kind of being in that round 8, round 9 range if you're anticipating it to be late. I view it because we were talking about it before we started. I'm like, would you rather have Jerry Jeudy or a 2022 first rounder with Corey? And we both kind of came to the agreement that we would actually prefer Jerry Jeudy in that spot. Then when you get into the range of like the Kenny Galladay, Deontay Johnson type area, that's probably where the 2022 first comes into play. And as you guys can see, that's about the middle of the 9th round. If you can trade your 2022 first for anything higher than middle of the 9th round value during your startup, and you anticipate to be a contender, I definitely think that would be fair value for the pick. If you're expecting yourself to be in the middle, early draft, obviously it changes. If you're in the early, I would expect a 4th round, 5th round type startup value. If you're in the middle, probably somewhere in between the 4th and 9th round, as I mentioned. But just being able to anticipate and understand and relate that 2022 first round pick to proven talent as opposed to startup pick value is how you're going to kind of visualize it in your head. Okay, would I rather Jerry Jeudy or this? Would I rather Galladay or this? It's kind of being able to elaborate and pick between them pretty easily once you do that.
Yeah, assigning players to pick values is like the number one thing that we always say when it comes to trading in dynasty startups, because everyone could just be like, oh yeah, do you want my 6th round dynasty startup pick for your 8th round, and I'll take your 10th round and you get my 12th round? Like, but what does that actually equal? Like, I like to look, if you go on, I don't know, Fantasy Football Calculator, which is free to use, you could just look at Dynasty ADP and just look at who's going at what pick number that you're trading away, just to get an idea of the type of players that you're dealing to for one another. Because if you realize and you're like, in your head, you're getting a 2-round upgrade, but from a tier perspective, it's like the same type of receiver versus an 8th round receiver, then there's really no point of making the trade altogether. So that's kind of how we think about dynasty trading. And me and Danny have definitely had our experience trading in dynasty leagues. I literally traded 5 times in the last, I don't know, month in the same dynasty league to end up getting a bunch of draft picks and trading a bunch of players. And I essentially made my team a middle of the pack team to a team that's going to be semi rebuilding, but I can also compete. But I'm probably going to be better going forward for the results or for the trades that I made as compared to what I was at before with some of the veterans that I had.
And I made my team from top of the line with no depth to top of the line with depth.
Yeah, because he also just fleeced a bunch of people. But anyway, the next team that we're going to talk about here is Raver's team. And you should see it on the screen right now. I'll let you go through the thing since he messaged you and you got all the scoring formats here and stuff.
I got you. So yeah, according to him, it's a super flex 1.75 tight end premium, 1.5 RB premium, and full PPR for wide receiver. So it's kind of tiered based off position, the amount of points you get per reception. So his team is quarterbacks. He's got Trey Lance, Carson Wentz, Tom Brady, Kellen Mond, and Jimmy Garoppolo. At running back, currently he's got Antonio Gibson, Austin Eckler, and Mike Davis as the 3 running backs he has so far in the draft. Wide receiver, absolutely stocked up. You got Brandon Ayuk, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Julio Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Amari Rodgers. And at tight end, in a 2 tight end start, 1.75 tight end premium, he's got fucking Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. So, yeah, you're absolutely stocked to the rim. My suggestion is if you can, I mean, again, your draft isn't fully over yet, but if you can add some more pass-catching running backs while you're finishing out this draft, even if you have to take James White late, even if you have to take like J.D. McKissick's not a bad show. Guys like that you can get super cheap in your startups that can give you PPR type depth. That's what I would target for your team as of now, because let's be honest here, you can head in year one and absolutely win with this team. I mean, Kelce and Waller alone are legitimate.
They might put up like 60, 70, 80 points a week.
Yeah, like it's
scoring format.
It's actually insanity. Like between them, the ultimate edge you have on your competition. I think, to be honest, I haven't seen the rest of the league, but I would assume that you're at least one of the top 3 teams. So if you can make that decision now, maybe part with some future assets, maybe try to go and fill out that RB depth. Your receivers are already set. Like that's what I would.
Receivers are by far the least valuable position in this scoring format too, because they are full PPR, and receivers in general are undervalued. So yeah, I think running backs is pretty much all you need to be attacking from here on out. Take your shots on guys like Damian Harris and James White and whoever else that you might see. If it's a running back that has a chance to get a full-time workload or anything, then just take a shot on them. And if not, go for pass catching guys like Danny said, because that's going to be valuable in a 1.5 running back premium. So I wouldn't even touch your wide receivers, to be honest. I think your wide receivers are fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he's actually got the benefit of, because he's got so much wide receiver depth. It's actually, I missed this in the message, but it's a 3 wide receiver start with 3 flexes. So you can literally play all of those receivers every week, which is just insane, because you got Ayuk starting, Moore starting, Cooper starting, Keenan started, Julio starting, Juju started. Boom, that's your 6 receivers on any given week.
Right. And if you pick up some good pass catching running backs like J.D. McKissick or whatever, maybe you'd start that over
James White,
or something like that. On any given week. But yeah, I think overall you're in really good shape. Kelce and Waller will carry your team in this kind of format. So
quite literally.
You really, and same with the running backs, honestly. If Gibson goes into a bigger role with as far as pass catching goes, he could be a very sneaky, very good guy in this type of format, because a lot of people probably don't expect him to get a lot of receiving volume because JD McKissick's there. And then Austin Eckler, as we all know, he gets a lot of receiving work. So he should be good from that perspective. And your quarterbacks really only need to be a complement at that point, and you have some pretty damn good quarterbacks too. So overall, you got a pretty complete team. Just fill out your running back depth, maybe get a young tight end or 2 later in the draft, like an Adam Troutman or something like that, just so you have some kind of, just so you have some kind of depth behind your 2 studs, because you're never going to have to play those guys ahead of your 2 studs. But for the future, because those guys are a little on the older side, you probably want some guys that could potentially grow into great options going forward.
Yep, I fully agree. So with that being said, we can head on to the next team, and that's OBS Rumdrinker that messaged us on Twitter. So you can take it away with this one.
Yeah, so OBS Rumdrinker, he said it's a 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, a kicker, no flex spots, and an IDP. So from an IDP perspective, we're just going to ignore that. Me and Danny don't play in IDP leagues. We've never played in IDP leagues, so we're not qualified to give you advice on IDP. So from the positions that we do know, it's only a 1 quarterback league, but you do have Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Tua. So you're absolutely fine at quarterback there. With 2 running backs and no flexes, you can only start 2 running backs a week. You got Swift, Dobbins, and Singletary right now. And then at wide receiver, you got Michael Thomas, Laviska Shenault, CeeDee Lamb, Curtis Samuel, Kenny Stills, and Alan Lazard. And you can start 3 wide receivers any given week. And then you got Mark Andrews at tight end. I believe his kicker is Matt Gay. I don't even take the screenshot because this is a kicker. And I think he has like the Chiefs defense. But what he does want to know is that he has picks 102, 103, 104, and 201. And basically what he said is the guy with the 101 is going to take Trevor Lawrence, which, naturally he would. It's a 1 quarterback league, so I'm not really sure why he would take Trevor Lawrence, but apparently he is going to take Trevor Lawrence, according to him. So he said his thought is to go with Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, and Kyle Pitts. To me, that's exactly what you should do. If you had the 102 or the 101, 102, and 103, that's exactly what I would tell you to do. Yep. So if this guy's going to take Trevor Lawrence, then you're just getting these guys a spot later than you should be getting them, because in our opinions, in a 1 quarterback format, this is the tier 1 of talent. These 3 guys, and I would put ETN in that tier. You probably wouldn't, but these 3 guys are my top 3 rated guys for a 1 quarterback format. So if you can get them 102 to 104, yeah, exactly.
I would actually even say, like, would you consider, because I think Harrison Chase locked and loaded, like you have to take them. In his spot, because he's only got Swift, Dobbins, and Singletary, who would you take between Pitts and ETN? Because he does have Andrews.
That's a fair point, but if you're going to take Najee Harris, then you got Swift, Dobbins, and Harris, right? So, and you can only start 2 running backs. There is no flex spot. So with those 3 guys, I think you're probably fine at the position. At that point, just take best player available, which is probably Kyle Pitts in the long term. And we don't really know what Mark Andrews' contract situation is, right? So there is a chance that Mark Andrews isn't quite the dynasty asset that he might be assumed to be just because he's on the Ravens now. Maybe they don't want to re-sign him or something like that, and he goes to a worse situation, and then you have Kyle Pitts in your back pocket and you don't have to worry about that. So I would just take Pitts personally, because you can't really start all 4 of those running backs anyway. It's always good to have running back depth, so I wouldn't blame you if you just wanted to go with ETN, and then you have 4 locked and loaded running backs that you can just play matchups with, and then once an injury happens, then you're just totally fine at the position. So that makes a lot of sense. You have a couple options there, but I personally would go with what you said: Harris, Chase, and Pitts.
Yep. No, I agree with that. It's also a 10-team league. I'm not sure if we addressed that.
No, so studs are important, and Kyle Pitts definitely fits the bill for studs.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we got Flett's team now. A quarterback, we can both go over it, but a quarterback is literally just absurd. And
this is a super flex league too.
This is a super flex league. Startup was this year: Dak Prescott, Ryan Tannehill, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson. At running back, you still got Jonathan Taylor, Raheem Mostert, J.D. McKissic, Najee Harris, and Michael Carter. Receiver, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Paris Campbell, Curtis Samuel, and Alan Lazard. And at tight end, you got Eric Ebron. So he's basically got the 303 and the 309. He's wondering where to go. And he also mentioned here that he's looking for a tight end. And he also asked if he should contend or rebuild. Now, I'll let you start it off. Like, what are your thoughts on the roster and that absurd quarterback depth that I've never seen before?
Yeah, so when you're in a position where you have that many quarterbacks, and I would say your biggest weakness on your team is your running back 2, because that's currently, or sorry, your running back 3, not your running back 2, because you have Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor. I still think you could use another running back. I can't remember what the scoring format is, but I believe you can start 3 running backs in this scoring format. And I always prefer to have a lot of great running back depth. And if I need receivers, they're very easy to acquire, because they're the least most important position in Dynasty, because there's so many of them. So if I were you, I would look to move one of Prescott or Tannehill or Lance or Fields, because they probably carry the most value in that in the order that I just said, probably. And try and get an upgrade at running back 3 if you possibly could. Or if you really wanted to and you wanted to get a stud receiver, because you currently don't have really a stud receiver, DJ Moore is your best receiver. But if you wanted to go out and get, I don't know, a Justin Jefferson or an AJ Brown or someone like really, really valuable like that, you could try and part with a guy like Dak Prescott and get a really superstar caliber receiver. And then at that point, you have 2 great running backs. You have a multitude of great quarterback options. You have a stud receiver. You have DJ Moore, and you still have a lot of receiver depth. And then at tight end, you're still looking at Eric Ebron. So if you're looking for a tight end, you could grab one in your draft at 303. Hunter Long or Pat Freiermuth are absolutely worth those picks. I would recommend doing that, probably based on your current roster. You don't have a lot of holes other than a young tight end potentially. And you already have Eric Ebron. You might as well pair him with Pat Freiermuth and just lock up the Pittsburgh Steelers tight end position if you wanted to do that. And then alternatively, you could also take one of your quarterbacks and look to grab a TJ Hawkinson or a Mark Andrews, or potentially even try and get a Darren Waller with like a pick or something like that.
Yeah, like me and Corey were mentioning before we started recording, but if you can pull off like Tannehill for Waller straight up, or Tannehill for Hawkinson and like a rookie 2 next year, like that would be an optimal play as well. Because I love Tannehill. He's my quarterback 11 in Dynasty, but with your current quarterback situation, if you can turn it into an elite difference maker at the tight end position, probably, like, I would absolutely say that and RB3 are your weakest positions at this point. I would try to go for it, because even if you lose a Tannehill, like your team is still elite. It's still ready.
And you could go even lower than that too. If sometimes people like they'll take Darren Waller and they'll have no tight end depth, so they don't want to trade away Darren Waller unless they're getting a good tight end back or something like that. So you could go up and take Zach Wilson, for example, and offer him to the guy that has Noah Fant or something like that, and be like, hey, I'll give you Zach Wilson for Noah Fant and a 3rd round pick or something like that. And that might be something you could go for, a more middle tier tight end instead of a stud guy like Hawkinson or Waller.
Yep. No, I fully agree. So with that being said, we can pretty move off because you're in a
real
really
quick. He did say, should I contend or rebuild? You're
contend.
absolutely contending with this
Contend.
team. This team is a contending team. You
Easily.
have the quarterback depth. You have the flexibility with your quarterback depth to go out and acquire a stud receiver or a stud tight end. Stud receiver would probably be the easiest to acquire, just given the value of receivers. Stud tight end, maybe a little bit more difficult, but I would make a move and get rid of one of those quarterbacks because you don't need that many.
Yep, no, I absolutely agree. So with that being said, you're absolute contender if you're able to do that. We can get on to the final team, I believe. Yes, it is. That's going to be JohnConway, who got in contact on Twitter. So he basically says, if you can give me your opinion on my team and let me know anything you think I could use some work. He's new to Dynasty, and so far he's really enjoyed the con. And he said, I'm sure you can say, but this is Superflex IDP, my first Dynasty league. So with that being said, his team is currently at quarterback, Watson and Hurts. Running back, he's got Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, Chase Edmonds, Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, Alexander Madison. I believe that's Chris Evans. No, it's Darrington Evans. And that's going to be Zach Moss. Wide receiver, he's got DeAndre Hopkins, Robert Woods, Cortland Sutton, Deontay Johnson, Marvin Jones, Jamison Crowder, Rashad Perriman, and N'Keal Harry. Now, a tight end, he's got Darren Waller and Irv Smith Jr. And he also added a question here. He's thinking about possibly packaging the 112 and the 201 to maybe someone else and try to get a receiver or move up into the 104 to 106 range to get maybe Trey Lance if he falls. And mentioning that 112 and 201 type move, if you can trade the 112 and the 201 to get up into that 104 spot and end up locked and loaded for a quarterback, I absolutely would do that given the state of your quarterback room. You got two really solid potential quarterbacks. The problem is Deshaun Watson may not play this year. Jalen Hurts, we don't really know the long-term validity of his overall value. If you can trade up and get Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson,
the one thing I would suggest though is if you're going up to get Trey Lance, like now me and you don't believe this, but there is a chance that Trey Lance is held out longer than he might deserve to be from that starting job. So if that happens, let's say Trey Lance doesn't play till week 9 or something like that, and Deshaun Watson is suspended 10 games, then you're looking at a situation where you only have Jalen Hurts as a starting option, and you're probably not going to be able to win a championship this year or contend at all with only one starting quarterback if that were to happen. So if you're going to go move up for a quarterback, I might suggest going up for Justin Fields or for Zach Wilson instead and not going quite as high, obviously, as a result, just because you know those guys are going to start sooner than Trey Lance, I would say. But then like at the same time, if you believe that Trey Lance is going to start early, you can always go up for Trey Lance and then secure yourself by going and trading for Ryan Fitzpatrick or something like that.
Yep. No, I agree with that. In general, though, you got a really good spot. The only real concern, again, you mentioned it, you need a quarterback that's ready to play. And aside from that, I mean, you got two sick, really good tight ends. Wide receiver core is looking good. You got requisite RB depth. It's just, again, those quarterbacks. So for your first Dynasty league, I think you did a really good job.
Yeah, especially the one thing I would recommend is if you're going to try and go up and get Trey Lance, go trade for Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jameis Winston or someone that might be just a 1-year starter, maybe even Derek Carr, if someone's selling him for cheap. Someone who might only be a 1, maybe 2-year starter, but you're secure as Watson and Trey Lance insurance in case neither of them play early this year. And
you could probably get a lot of those guys, especially the older ones like Fitzpatrick, for maybe a late 2, early 3 type of rookie pick. And if you're waiting on,
in my opinion, easily
absolutely.
Because you're secure. Like the difference between that 3rd round pick and you contending this year is worth that difference because Ryan Fitzpatrick will probably be a top 15 caliber fantasy quarterback this year, but he's probably only valuable this year, right? So if Deshaun Watson misses this year, sits out this year, who the hell knows? Then you're secure with a top 15 option to go with Jalen Hurts. And then Trey Lance, probably about halfway through the season at the latest, should be a full-time starter in San Francisco to go along with that.
Yep, fully agree. So with that being said, if you guys made it this far in the video, what are we going to get them to comment down below, Corey? What are you thinking for today?
Comment down below. Corey's dog never shuts the hell up because I had to mute my mic a couple times because my dog was barking. So you could comment that down below. My dog's a little bit of a barker at people when they walk by my house.
For sure. So with that being said, this should be uploaded either Saturday night or Sunday morning. And as we speak, I hear the dog, either Saturday night or Sunday morning. And if you're watching this on Sunday, guess what? We should be live on Sunday around noonish, I believe. Corey, does that work for you around noon?
All right. That works.
If we're live around noon, you guys got to make sure you get in here, and we're going to be hitting up a Superflex startup mock with you guys. So Gonna be fun. Hope you guys enjoy. Peace out, y'all.